Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Northwest Suburban's College COVID-19 Where Are We Now conference. I am Claudicia Sappho. I am a pharmacy technician and a professor for the Northwest Suburban Community College. We know that the pandemic has brought us many things, unfortunately, a lot of grief, heartache, and a lot of things that have brought us down and adversities. But one good thing it has brought us is the networking and the getting together with others. It's also brought us some good things as far as advancements in medicine. So we have brought this conference to you so that you are able to keep yourself informed with the most up-to-date information as far as what is going on now. And so that you can feel comfortable in giving extra info to a family member, a friend, or a coworker that comes from credible sources. Okay, thank you so much again, Dr. Klugman.
My pleasure.
Now we will move on to our next speaker, which is going to be Dr. Michael Cailas, and he's going to speak to us on the data of vaccinations in the US, Midwest, and Cook County, the death rates for vaccinated and for unvaccinated people. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Okay. Perfect. I guess it works. Okay. Well, actually, the title is not exactly the same. What we're going to be talking today is basically the mortality database and structure that's available, and the issue of underlying disparities, and we'll focus on Cook County, Illinois. Just as an introduction, this work is supported by a very large group of people. The most contributing are Matt Lacer and John Canar. All of us are from UIC, School of Public Health, EOHS department. So the outline is before we talk about dashboards, because this is what we want to talk about at the end, if we have time, what goes into the dashboard? Why? Because if you want to study visualized disparities, you have to base the information you're deriving on very reliable data. Now, I'm sure it's a boring topic, and a lot of the audience will agree. But let's start from the basics. So we're talking about a phenomenon, okay, in this case, the pandemic. Then we have to pick up the data that describe this phenomenon, and from that data to extract information and knowledge, okay? And of course, the knowledge, as the previous speaker, very well presented, identifies disparities and issues of equity. Again, as we said before, the phenomenon we're going to be focusing on is the pandemic. And what we're going to be doing today is examining the importance of the data that goes into these dashboards. And in the case study that I'm going to be presenting, you'll see what happens if you don't pay attention to the phenomenon and you don't understand very well the data. Now, the other thing that we're going to really underline is what happens with the data, in this case, mortality in Cook County, when you want to study disparities, okay? And it's obvious. Now, the other thing that probably won't have time to cover is the dashboards, okay? There's a lot of criticism about them. They're useful. The issue is how do you design them? I gave to the organizers an outline, and in that outline, there's quite a few links of our own work where you can go and read about designing dashboards and the usefulness of them. One thing, I keep on repeating it always, data, information, knowledge are not the same. So keep that always in mind, okay? Let me start with, the basic approach we want to take, okay? In studies, let me see. In studies of public health data, we have to adopt a very systematic approach. Okay, why? Because the issue, as we say, the concluding part of the analysis, okay, is very significant. It involves public health, so we have to be extremely systematic on the way we use data. So before we even start with the data, what we have to think about is the phenomena that we're talking about, and how well we know from past experience its behavior. Again, the previous presenter did a very good job and mentioned the 18 and a bit the 19, the second wave of the epidemic. Okay. So for COVID, we had some information, and that information was that it basically behaves as a typical, we call it bacterial growth curve. But anyway, it's a curve that has certain phases. Okay, as you can see with the 18 and 19 occurrence, it was quite well defined, and mind you, that era, the data were really paper-based, and summaries were done by hand, okay? No computers then. One thing that the understanding of the phenomenon brings is what? And I'm asking it in terms of wave means what in this context. So one thing that you have to realize is a very important parameter for studying these outbreaks is time. And unfortunately, as we will see, a lot of people forgot about that. So let's go to the core now. We kind of understand the phenomenon. The second, phase, if you want to study this, is of course the observational data. What you need basically is data that record this phenomenon in terms of time, as we saw before, and space. Space is very, very important, okay? And slowly we will elaborate on this concept, okay? Time, I think, is self-evident. Space is not that much, though a lot of people like to show off with nice graphs, okay? Which very often are not very correct. So let's go back to our data, okay? We wanted to create a data structure in order to study basically disparities in the outcome of this disease, okay? So the fundamental question for us was what kind of data to use, okay? There were two well-known data streams that were available. Public health departments, not from the beginning, but soon enough started distributing data as well. So those data streams had basically mortality data and then, of course, positive cases. In our case, and it's a long story with a lot of input from experts in the field, we selected to use mortality. Now, the source of our data, and we're very lucky, is the medical examiners database. It's public domain, available in the outline that I hope is circulated. You can find that source. So space, as I said before, for us, it's a critical criterion for understanding and preparing our data. That has implications, okay? And a lot of people, are not comfortable with those implications, but we'll see at the end why we have to make them. So we have to make an assumption in terms of what data is acceptable and what is not. So in this case, since for us, location was critical, records, death records that did not have location sufficient, good enough information about the addresses, for example, were removed. Now this, again, has to do with what we consider as a study area. In our case, what we wanted to do is start with the lowest possible definition of location. In this case, it's an address. In the space, it means the X and the Y of your observation. If you think in a two-dimensional space. So we did not want to include in our database observations that were not well defined in terms of the space component. This is an example of a few observations that were removed. Somebody might argue is, if your target area is Cook County, why did you remove the first one, which kind of gives the zip code level, okay? Again, you can argue that, okay? The second and third, there's no, debate about them. They're obviously not related to the data structure we want to create. So for us, the most important thing that we realized in a lot of especially the initial publications is there was not that much attention in terms of the two defining parameters of this epidemic, time and space. And we'll show examples of both. So if you really study your data structure, in this case, the database that's provided by the medical examiner, even other databases, and there's a live, a data stream at one of the universities that has a very fancy dashboard. But no matter what database you use, you'll see that there's a very striking characteristics at a low scale. Okay, if you go really down at the scale of data, and that characteristic is something in the geostatistical literature called coincidence points. Basically, coincidence points are records that have the same address. So when we started analyzing the data at the beginning, we realized this is going to be a problem. Why? Because as you'll see later on, the coincident points are half in some cases. Again, time scale is important here. So coincident points in the original database are half of the data, of all the deaths recorded by the medical examiner. Now, these coincident points we found out are basically long-term care facilities. And there's an issue there because, those facilities are operated as small independent communities, and they were really hard hit by the epidemic at the beginning. Other recordings of coincident points were, people living in densely populated high rises. As we found out, that's not an insignificant amount. It's almost 4% of the data, and you cannot ignore why, because these same location, quote unquote, because in the address you don't have the apartment number. These same location outcomes signify an intensity and problems within the building or within the small setting there. Other coincident points are hospitals and correctional facilities.
Dr. Cailas, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I hate to interrupt, but it looks like your slides are not advancing. So we're
Uh,
not
I can see them on my screen.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. You want me to wait until they upload in the YouTube channel?
No, you can continue. I just wanted to kind of just make you aware. I'm looking at the channel as well.
I can slow down if you want, but
Oh, it looks like we're still on slide 1 here as far as we can see.
oh, I don't believe it.
Do you have it on slideshow? You probably want to play the slideshow for it from the beginning. Maybe that will help. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sharing my screen and it's a slideshow. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm on.
It looks like we're stuck.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if you're using multiple screens, maybe.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make you aware.
Okay. I don't know what's going on, but
okay. There we go. Now we can see it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. See, at least you didn't miss the graphs. Okay. So this is, which is good. Let me really go back. It takes time now to load, indeed. Okay, same problems as before. Okay. Anyway, this will be really a big problem with the maps then. So case study. Okay, as we said before, we're going to focus on Chicago. The original paper is in the link that's provided in the outline. This first study that came out in July found 4 very interesting conclusions, okay, that I hope the audience can see. It doesn't, the slideshow is, I cannot, okay, here it is. We have to wait for the graph to load, and this will be a problem, okay? This graph, whenever it shows up, shows why it's important to consider time as a parameter for studying this phenomenon. I don't know what's happening. Didn't show up. Any suggestion? Because my whole presentation is based on graphs and maps.
I don't see it here.
Me too. I cannot see it on the channel stream. Okay. Let me go to the next one. The same thing. Do you have technical support?
It looks like this may be an issue with the display. I'm not sure.
I really don't know. In my presentation is there. The issue as before, the graphics, and we saw that in the previous presentation, the graphics take time to load, but I never thought the graphs would be a problem. Sorry, I really don't know what to what to say. Okay, any idea from the audience why is this happening?
Can you reopen it, sir?
Yeah, you see the graph behind the graph in the blank space is not uploading in the presentation here, and I really don't know what's going on. It's in the PowerPoint, it's in the slideshow of the PowerPoint, but not it cannot be uploaded. Sorry. One thing is to
Well,
Okay.
I would say don't delay to wait for it. Maybe this is something you can just send out to us and we can get it out too.
Okay, so what I'll do is, let me, I don't even know what's going on. So I really don't know how to continue. As you can see, everything is, I really don't know what's going on. I don't think I can continue because can you send to the audience the outline with all the details, and then I'll send you the.
Yes, you can if you want to share.
Let me share again.
If you'd like to share a link or something, I could put it inside of the chat.
Correct. What I can do is send to the audience the presentation. I'm reloading everything. That's my last hope. At least finish with dignity. Okay, let me see. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
How about the graph?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what happened. Okay. So I think I won't go into the presentation mode, and I'll just focus on really fast on a few slides. So what we've done. You can see this slide, correct?
Yes, we can.
Okay, finally. So what we've done is we focused on breaking the data in terms of the information we extracted from the coincident points. That means that data that are not the data became basically data for the population living in households like us, all of us, and people living in LTCFs, long-term care facilities. If you don't do that, and a lot of people publish papers without doing it, you get basically those three graphs in terms of race. So you can see here the overall population, as we call it, white, black, and Latinx. If you separate your data and do the work that you have to do, this is the outcome of the epidemic in terms of race. As you can see, it devastated, especially at the beginning, the Black residents of Chicago. The other two races were hit as well. The issue here is if you don't do this, your information, especially if you're trying to test assumptions, your information is totally wrong. And unfortunately, I didn't have the time to show you. Most of the publications were published, not most, a lot of publications were published during this period. Some of them were pre-publications, no review or whatever, but the ones that came out later, after May, they were based on data that were not separated, that did not take into account the entire phenomenon, okay? Why? Because as I mentioned at the beginning, the phenomenon is based on waves. So what happens if you don't take into account the waves? You can see here in April, where most of a lot of publications were published, the phenomenon is not well established yet. Why? Because as we said before, it's based on waves. So if you want to study the distribution, the spatial distribution of the epidemic in Cook County, you have to wait until May, June, July to be able to define very well what the spatial distribution is. These are some examples. I'm going to run out of time that we have, but the main the main conclusion that you have to keep in mind is if you do not, if you want to study disparities, and if you do not do, the proper, very systematic analytical procedure, you'll basically have the curve above. Now, if you do, proper work, the reality is kind of different, and it's really striking in terms of disparities. Why? Because you can see that one race was extremely hard hit by the pandemic. Okay, and other areas that we examine, and that information you can find it in the dashboards we have. It's in the outline document that I hope is circulating. We've done the same thing for the Midwest, the entire Midwest, at a county level, not like here in Chicago that we had very detailed information. We managed to extract information at a county level, separate the overall population into two components, HP and LTCFs, and the conclusions are the same. So the most important conclusion is, if you want to study disparities and test assumptions and nice things like that, before you test the assumptions, make sure you really understand your data structure. Any questions? And as I said, I'll send you the presentation so you can upload it.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Cailas, and thank you for your determination to get that information out to us. Sorry about the technical issues you were having.
I know it's the first time it happens, but there's actually the next from me presenters should not switch to the presentation mode. Okay, if they're using PowerPoints. Okay, that I think this is the problem. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Any questions?
Let's see here. Okay. It says, how is the epidemic now? How is the pandemic now, as the lines seem to come together at the end of your presentation?
This is the first wave. Again, if you go to the dashboards that we have information about the second wave. Again, for us, understanding the phenomenon is important, and when we're publishing and analyzing, we analyze things in terms of waves. When it comes to the epidemic now, that's the work we started. Actually, we started a few months ago this summer. Why? Because there's a confusing factor that the previous Craig mentioned. You don't really have accurate numbers for the vaccinated people. Why? Because some only have one dose, others have two doses. So we managed to find something as a surrogate that probably will be quite good, and we'll be presenting the results very soon. Again, what we found is that especially with a population that's highly vaccinated, above 90%, which is the LTCFs, the death toll continued there. Okay. Now there are issues. I mean, we don't know the details, of course, because they'll never revealed. Okay, but we still continued recording deaths, even though those people were early enough vaccinated. Okay, so there's a lot of issues, a lot of assumptions to make, but as I said, we do not like to go into that kind of details. It's not our background. The only thing we can do is analyze the data at a proper scale and with a proper data structure.
Okay, thank you for that. And then this will be our last question. It says, is there any educational effort of the government based on the race?
Based on the rate of what?
Based on race.
Oh, it's probably disappointing because all the public health portals report really summary. at least the ones up to this summer. I don't know what happened, let's say this month, okay? But they provide summary data about race, and usually for some sites, you can find them at a county level, which is not bad, very good. But most of the race data are at a scale, it's a very large scale, okay? So for Cook County, as we said before, Cook County is the one with the black outline, okay? And for Cook County, you can find very good race data, and in some cases, they might have zip codes. But what you need in order to do this proper disparity studies and other identifying clusters and things like that is you need data at a lower scale. And there are two reasons they're not releasing that kind of information. One is privacy. There are privacy issues, which I'm not sure they're valid because the medical examiner releases that information at an address level. So privacy is one issue. The other issue, of course, is it's not easy to maintain databases like that. So you have to give them credit for that as well. The Hopkins data portal, which is one that everybody's using, has race data, but again, at an aggregated level, and the base level for their data streams is county level. So, I mean, you can maybe extract broad race implications at a county level, but again, for disparity studies, a broad scale will mask the situation. Okay, and we have because of the time delay, I have these two examples here. Okay. So if you want to do a study, and model come up with a predictive model for the pandemic, okay, you have to be able to, clean up, as we say, prepare your data properly. So this is something that gives you an idea at a zip code level, the association of the household population with one of the socioeconomic variables, which is level below poverty. If you don't do this, the data look like this. So with this, there is a chance to model with this kind of, data structure. Unfortunately, the chances of coming up with anything is very, very slim. This is the overall population. This is the HP population as well. So when it comes to race, that's the answer. The answer is that you can find data, but only at a county level, and that's not very useful to be able to do disparity studies and allocation of vaccines in critical areas. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cailas. Okay. We will be moving in here to our next talk, which will be given by Lorraine.